Being intelligent is certainly a beneficial thing if you're trapped in a metaphysical form of hell, like our friends, the survivors from the Don't Starve universe. But as we know, some survivors show a certain level of intelligence over their peers. But by how much? Greetings everybody, my name is Polarlotus, and today we are going to talk about that, and speculate just how smart each survivor may be, using the tried and true, undisputable method. That's right, you all know and love it. Yeah, it's a tier list, but no ordinary tier list. You see, instead of being basic and doing the whole S, A, B, C, all that stuff, I decided to actually label these tiers, and we will be using it to judge each survivor's level of intelligence. Most of these should be pretty self-explanatory, so let's just move on to how we are going to determine intelligence. The survivors don't exist as real people, shocker, I know, so we can't give them an IQ test or anything like that. So, I've carefully analyzed each survivor's quotes, backstory, and other bits of official lore to come up with my own theories on how intelligent each survivor is. This will include emotional and logical intelligence. There are other forms of intelligence, I know, but these two are the easiest to gauge off of quotes and lore alone, since, again, we can't truly understand fully what each survivor knows. Also, remember, this is all speculatory. And if you feel I got something wrong, then please let me know in the comments down below. Now's a good time to mention that there's one key thing we won't be factoring, and that is basic game mechanics such as crafting. Because if we did, then every single survivor would be considered a genius, since they can make several tools and other things freely. There is one exception to that, however, and it's a perfect way to segue into our first character, Wilson, the great scientist and poster child himself. So when it comes to talking about Wilson's intelligent actions, well, there's a lot. Canonically, he is the inventor of the many machines in the Constant, and therefore he gets most of the crafts attributed to him, which I cannot lie is a huge boost to his rankings. But here's where the bad comes in. Wilson may be smart, but he's no genius. Many of the other survivors will complain about his designs, showing that his work is pretty flawed, not to mention he is very easily fooled and has some pretty poor deduction skills. He's also by far not the smartest person on this list, so I'm happy throwing him in high above average tier. Next up we have Willow. She's a little hard to determine if I'm being honest. Believe it or not, she does seem to know her stuff when it comes to the basics, but that's pretty much it. It's boring, I know, but I think Willow, despite her affinity for fire, which is pretty anti-knowledge if you think about it, is perfectly average in the intelligence department. Not a genius, but not dumb either, so hey, cool. Ooh, yay, an easy one. Next up we have Wolfgang. Now most of you would probably expect me to throw him in dumb or below average and just be done with it, because it's that obvious. That's his trope after all, the brainless jock. But hear me out here. Yes, I think Wolfgang is in the below average department, mostly due to his obvious lack of understanding of the world around him via his quotes. But there is one thing keeping me from throwing him down in the dumb category, and that's because he does show many signs of intelligence. In both his pre-constant life and his current life, he shows lots of empathy, knows when things aren't quite right, and even has a stronger fear response than others, which, believe it or not, can be a sign of intelligence. I don't know, maybe I'm reaching here, but I don't believe Wolfgang is truly as dumb as he lets on. Still definitely on the lower side though. Next up, we have Wendy. And much like Willow, she's a little hard to determine based on quotes alone. That's until you factor in the fact that she's like around 8 years old. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when I was 8, I wasn't running around referencing Shakespeare plays or using words like this. If Wendy was an adult, I would say high average, but given her age and clear understanding of everything, I'm gonna put her in the above average department. Next up, we have WX78, and oh boy is this one gonna be interesting. So first, it's undoubtable that WX shows some conflicting signs when it comes to intelligence. Firstly, we know that they were originally Wagstaff's assistant, meaning they worked with someone incredibly smart. These smarts undoubtedly rubbed off on them, and this is proven by their overlap in quotes. Emotionally, I actually think WX is pretty smart as well. They do show some genuine emotion, and though this emotion is mostly hate, it is still an emotion. All things considered, thanks to WX's backstory, I would have to say that they earn a solid place in above average. Next up, we have Wickerbottom, and I got a lot to say about this little librarian here. Most of it good for her case. It's obvious she's a little smarter than pretty much any of the other survivors, especially because she's a literal walking dictionary. But just how smart is she? To understand this, we need to look back at her backstory. The way that Wickerbottom was transported to the Constant was actually pretty special, as it was a deal with Maxwell. This deal was to preserve the knowledge of an entire library in her brain. And look, I spent a lot of time calculating each individual book in this cinematic here. Rewinded, paused, fast forwarded, I counted every single pixel. And the total comes out to be a lot of books. Wickerbottom is essentially a walking library, and this alone is enough for me to confidently put her in the genius tier. Next up, we have the lumberjack, Woody. And don't get me wrong, he's a pretty decent survivalist, rugged, well put together, and emotionally sound. Well, besides the whole talking to his axe thing. But who knows what negative impact all of those head bashings as Weremoose has on his intelligence. Or what is left behind after physically shrinking his head down to the size of a goose. Well, we don't know the true anatomy of werification. Maybe that's a topic for another video. But for now, thanks to everything else, I would say low average. Clay, we really do need some more Woody lore. That one Walter story is just not cutting it. Next, we have Wes. Now, look, just because Wes doesn't talk doesn't mean he is dumb. We don't know if he's like this on purpose or if it's part of his curse. More likely, it's part of his curse. But we do know one thing. Despite all of the misfortune Wes has gone through, there's no canonical deaths recorded for Wes. That's more than what can be said for Wilson. Nah, let's be real though, I have no clue. Emotionally, Wes seems really empathetic in his short, but for now, let's just slot him in average. I mean, it's not like I have a lot of quotes to go on either, so... Next up, Maxwell. And this one's gonna be a little fun. He certainly knows his stuff. He understood how to manipulate shadows in the real world and carried that knowledge over to the Constant. He's capable of manipulating people easily, as seen with the fact that he coerced many people into the Constant, which, as disgusting as it may be, is a form of intelligence. However, being a con man, a liar, and a holder of a magic book doesn't make him a genius. I'll comfortably smack him in the above average tier for the purposes of this list, because he does have a very good understanding of magic. Now, we don't exactly know what magic is in the Constant, but it has to go hand in hand with science if you think about it. Isn't there a saying, like science is also magic, is also science, is also magic? Cut this out, please, future me. Uh-oh. Next up, we have Wigfrid. Now, Wigfrid in the Beforeland, the pre-Constant, was an actress. Now, I don't know about you guys, but to be an actor or an actress, especially a stage one, takes a pretty high form of intelligence. You must memorize lines, be exceptionally charismatic, and understand many different things. Wigfrid takes this a step further. Her wish from Maxwell was to turn her acting career into a reality, and when she got it, she decided to make her part more permanent. Is she still acting? Maybe. But I would say all that combat may have had a bit of a negative impact on her IQ. Either way, judging by her backstory, I'm still gonna say high average. We're kind of ignoring her quotes because they do seem quite barbaric, but we also have to remember that she's playing a part, or maybe she's not, but most likely she is. Next up, we have Weber. And this one was personally a little hard. We have to remember that much like Windy, Weber is a child, and so should be judged as one. That being said, Weber does seem to have the intelligence of, well, an average child. He doesn't understand a lot and is overall pretty childish. I would put Weber in below average, however, which goes against what I just said, because I guess we do have to include his spider half too. And it certainly doesn't seem like a smart spider considering its position at the moment. Next, we have Winona. She's one of the few characters who is capable of harnessing electricity within the Constant. Now, I don't know about you guys, but learning about electrons and magnets and all that fun stuff is really, really hard. She's also capable of somehow forming targeting systems for what seems like primitive catapults. I would personally say that Winona may be on the lower end of the genius scale. She's not quite as book smart as Wickerbottom in a literal sense, but she's very handy, scarily so. Imagine throwing someone into the wilderness and you come back a week later to see that they learned how to make a generator from scratch, military-grade targeting systems, and a proper home defense network. Yeah, that takes some thinking. Next up, we have Worley. Now, Worley doesn't give us a lot to go with. His backstory is very tragic, yes, but it doesn't give us much insight into how smart he may be. Except, I guess we do have something. He is a renowned chef. And honestly, I don't know about you guys, but have you ever tried to follow a recipe without instructions? It's pretty hard. Well, Worley here is capable of doing just that. I mean, let's be real, that has to show some intelligence, right? I would at least say high average. Also, he speaks French, which is really cool. Next, we have Wartox. He's smart enough to have a moral compass unlike other Crampi, and generally seems to know quite a bit more than other survivors even, but that could be attributed to being a constant native. Or is he? I don't know. One thing's for sure though, for a Krampus, Wartox is pretty darn smart. I would put him in above average. Next up, we have the plant boy, Wormwood. And here's where I may get a little bit of flack. Okay, so it's general knowledge that Wormwood is a little on the dimmer scale, at least when it comes to his current state. He talks like a baby and seems to have the mental understanding of, well, a toddler. That is, until you realize his origins. Make no mistake, I think that in his current state, Wormwood is on the dumb side of things. That's just it. There's no real contesting that. Besides the fact that he canonically solved the archive puzzle, but that could have also just been due to his connection to Alter, and therefore the archives. However, I do want to make one thing clear. This tier list does not factor in mental capacity, of which I believe Wormwood has a lot of potential. He's clearly capable of learning and is doing so at a rapid rate. And if Don't Starve 3 ever comes out for some reason, I fully expect Wormwood to go up a level or two on this list. Or if there's like a time shift in Don't Starve Together, also for some reason. Okay, back-to-back characters that are going to get people mad at me. Let's get this over with. Wirt. Sure, Wirt is smarter than a Merm, but what merit really is that? If we're comparing intelligence to Merms, that's an incredibly low bar. Now, make no mistake, Wirt again has a huge mental capacity, as she's shown to be learning at a rapid rate. But as of now, she would be in the dumb tier. And before you head to the comments and say, oh, but Wirt is the only other survivor besides Wicker and Max that can read. Yeah, that just doesn't make sense canonically. You're telling me Wilson can't read simply because he can't use Wicker's books? It's obvious that the books are tied to magic, not reading comprehension. Wirt merely is the only survivor who finds enjoyment or displeasure in reading these books. Again, it shows a high mental capacity, similar to Wormwood though. In her current state, she's just not that intelligent overall. Next up, we have Walter. And honestly, I've searched through as many of Walter's quotes as I could, and he just seems like a normal kid, intelligence-wise. Maybe a little higher due to his better control over his emotions, but that could be due to the blissful ignorance of childhood. I mean, he freaks out pretty quick when the damage becomes real, so yeah, it all kind of checks out. Next up, we have Wanda. And she's a bit of an interesting one, and kind of really hard to rank. That is, until I realized one key fact. Wanda has seen countless timelines, experienced countless events, been old, middle-aged, and young more times than anyone. She's lived more life than any single survivor. And more life means more smarts in theory. Though she does seem pretty forgetful, so I'll throw her in above average. If she is a genius, she hasn't used that to her advantage in any obvious way quite yet. Finally, now we are going to move on over to the single-player exclusive characters. Bear with me here because these will be fueled mostly by stereotypes and headcanons because, well, Clay hasn't really given us a lot of lore to go off of for them. Regardless, we will be starting with Walani. Chill surfer gal who prefers being lazy over doing work and nothing else much going for her. I think I can comfortably put her in perfectly average tier. Being lazy doesn't necessarily make someone dumb, and she has a general understanding of most of the things happening around the constant. Next up, we have Wilbur. Now make no mistake, Wilbur clearly shows a conscience. He is a playable character after all, and seems to be wearing some form of clothes. So he's smarter than your average primate. But again, much like Wirt, that's not a very big bar to pass. Wilbur is probably the dumbest character on this list, for what should be obvious reasons. That doesn't make him not cool though, because if there's one thing Wilbur proves, it's that it doesn't take smarts to be amazingly fun to play as. Next up, our final Shipwrecked exclusive character, Woodlegs. Based off of a 17th century pirate, Woodlegs is destined to be on the not-so-smart side of the scale. But I think he's a little more advanced than other pirates thanks to his knowledge on some things he really shouldn't have knowledge about. Gosh, Clay, please, we really need more lore for these single-player characters. We are dying out here. Regardless, I can't in good faith give him higher than low average. Really bordering on a high below average, though. And now we can move on to the two Hamlet exclusive characters, starting with Wheeler. She's smart enough to create her own adventuring gadgets and understands combat better than any other character in the Constant. I think that makes her pretty smart, but not by a crazy amount. I would say Wheeler could comfortably fit in low above average, strictly because of her Navigadget. If there's really no magic in that thing, then she's gotta get a patent on that ASAP, because that technology could be insane, especially in her timeline. But again, who knows where she actually got the thing? For all we know, she could have found it or bought it. Next up, we have Wilba. And, okay, so Wilba is another child character, which makes ranking a bit iffy. But let's think for a second, how good could Palace City's school system be? Actually, does it even have schools? Their English is pretty broken, they seem smart in general, having an advanced economy, but they also retain some questionable qualities. Honestly, gosh, these single-player characters are rough. High below average? I don't know. She has a basic awareness, but also commonly dumbs things down, much like Wolfgang. So, And finally, onto our final and most interesting character, Wagstaff. Okay, let's rip the band-aid off right now. We all know this man is a genius. His inventions far outclass even Wilson's, capable of harvesting energy from Alter themselves. The question now becomes, how much of a genius is he really? He's smarter than Winona, that's for sure, but can he really compete with a walking library? True, Wickerbottom isn't running around stealing energy from the moon, but maybe that's because she already knows that Alter doesn't like that. Okay, maybe not. I'm sure her library didn't carry any books on gods in separate universes, but regardless of her newfound intelligence, she's still incredibly smart. Personally, I think Wickerbottom is smarter than Wagstaff. Wagstaff is more industrious for sure, but we all know that industriousness does not equal smart. Whew, okay, that was hard, but I think I got them all. That was every single... oh, right, wonky, whoops. You see, Wonky is an omnipotent being of pure intelligence because they are every survivor at once and share some type of hive mind where they understand the thought of every survivor through a quantum hyperfield loop matrix, where each Wonky is actually the player. So in theory, Wonky is the metaphysical constant, taking into account all of the players and survivors' intelligence quotient and everything that